Amelia had always considered herself a good judge of character. She prided herself on her intuition, her ability to read people, to see beyond the surface and understand their true intentions. And for the past 3 years, her intuition had told her that Daniel was a good man, a kind and loving partner, the one she was meant to be with. They had met in their final year of university, a chance encounter in the library that had blossomed into a deep and meaningful relationship. They had shared dreams of the future, plans for a cozy home filled with laughter and love. Amelia had envisioned a life with Daniel, a life of comfortable companionship and unwavering support. Their relationship had weathered its share of storms, as all relationships do, but they had always emerged stronger, their bond seemingly unbreakable. Amelia trusted Daniel implicitly, believed in his honesty and his commitment to their shared future. They had talked about marriage, about starting a family, and Amelia had allowed herself to dream of a lifetime together. That afternoon, the illusion shattered into a million pieces with a single, jarring buzz of her phone. Daniel was in the shower, the sound of the running water a familiar backdrop to her Sunday afternoon. Amelia was curled up on the sofa, idly scrolling through social media, waiting for him to finish so they could go out for the brunch they had planned. Her phone, which was charging on the coffee table, vibrated insistently. She glanced at the screen. A message from an unknown number. Her brow furrowed in confusion. She didn't recognize the number. Hesitantly, she picked up the phone and unlocked it. The message was short, just 4 words. "He's not who you think he is." Attached to the message was a photo. Amelia's breath hitched in her throat as she opened it. The image was blurry, taken from a distance, but there was no mistaking the 2 figures locked in a passionate embrace. One of them was Daniel. The other was a woman Amelia had never seen before. Her heart pounded in her chest, a cold dread washing over her. This couldn't be real. There had to be some mistake. She stared at the photo, her mind struggling to comprehend what she was seeing. Daniel, her Daniel, kissing another woman. The way he held her, the intimacy of the embrace. It wasn't just a casual peck. It was a kiss filled with passion, with longing. A kiss that spoke of a connection Amelia had never suspected. Her hands started to tremble, and the phone slipped from her grasp, landing with a soft thud on the carpet. She felt a wave of nausea rise in her throat. This couldn't be happening. Not to her. Not with Daniel. She picked up the phone again, her fingers shaking as she zoomed in on the photo, desperately searching for any detail that might prove it was a fake, a cruel prank. But the face of the man kissing the woman was undeniably Daniel's. The way his hair fell, the distinctive curve of his jawline, she knew it was him. Tears welled up in her eyes, blurring her vision. She felt a sharp pain in her chest, as if someone had physically punched her in the gut. Betrayal. The word echoed in her mind, a cold and unwelcome guest. She stood up abruptly, pacing the living room, her mind racing. Who was that woman? When had this happened? How long had it been going on? A million questions flooded her thoughts, each one more agonizing than the last. The sound of the shower stopped, and Amelia froze, her heart pounding in her ears. Daniel would be out any minute now. What was she going to do? How was she supposed to act? Could she even look at him without screaming? She quickly wiped the tears from her eyes, trying to compose herself. She needed to be calm, to think clearly. She couldn't just confront him with a blurry photo from an unknown number. She needed more information, more proof. Daniel emerged from the bathroom, a towel wrapped around his waist, a cheerful smile on his face. "Hey, babe," he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Sorry for taking so long. The hot water was just perfect." Amelia forced a weak smile, her gaze fixed on his face, searching for any sign of guilt or deception. He looked the same as always, his familiar warmth radiating towards her. It was almost surreal, as if the photo she had just seen belonged to another reality. "No worries," she managed to say, her voice sounding surprisingly steady. "I was just looking at some things on my phone." Daniel walked over and kissed her on the forehead. "Ready for brunch?" he asked, his eyes filled with anticipation. Amelia nodded, her throat tight. She knew she couldn't go out with him, couldn't pretend that everything was normal. She needed answers. "Daniel," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "can we talk for a minute before we go?" He looked at her, his smile fading slightly, a hint of concern in his eyes. "Sure, what's up?" Amelia took a deep breath, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. She had to be careful, to play it cool. She couldn't let him know what she knew just yet. I got a weird message from a number I don't recognize," she said, trying to sound casual. "It was kind of strange." "A weird message?" Daniel frowned. "What did it say?" Amelia hesitated for a moment, her mind racing. Should she show him the photo? Should she confront him directly? She decided against it for now. She wanted to see how he would react, to gauge his honesty. It just said, "Never mind," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "It was probably just a wrong number or something." Daniel looked at her, his eyes searching hers as if trying to read her thoughts. Amelia held his gaze, trying to appear nonchalant, but inside her heart was pounding like a drum. "Okay," Daniel said slowly, still looking slightly suspicious. "Well, if you're sure. Are you ready to go?" Amelia nodded again, forcing another smile. She stood up, her legs feeling like lead. As they walked towards the door, Amelia glanced back at the coffee table where her phone lay face down. The image of Daniel kissing that other woman flashed in her mind, a stark and painful reminder of the betrayal she had just witnessed. The brunch plans, the casual conversation, the familiar warmth. It all felt like a cruel charade. She was walking beside a stranger, a man who was not who she thought he was. And in that moment, a seed of something dark and unfamiliar began to sprout within her, a burning desire for revenge. The hurt was still raw, but beneath it, a cold determination was starting to take root. He had broken her heart, and she knew, with a chilling certainty, that she wouldn't let him get away with it. The brunch was a surreal experience. Amelia sat across from Daniel, forcing herself to make small talk, to laugh at his jokes, all while the image of him kissing another woman played on repeat in her mind. Every word he spoke, every smile he offered, felt like a lie, a carefully constructed performance. She watched him, her eyes narrowed, searching for any telltale sign of guilt, any flicker of deception. But Daniel seemed completely at ease, oblivious to the storm raging inside her. Throughout the meal, Amelia subtly tried to steer the conversation towards relationships, towards the topic of trust and infidelity. She asked him hypothetical questions, probing his views on loyalty and commitment. Daniel's responses were exactly what she expected. Clichés about the importance of honesty and the sanctity of a relationship. His words felt hollow and hypocritical in light of the photo she had seen. When they returned to the apartment, Amelia excused herself, claiming she had a headache and needed to lie down. She went into the bedroom and closed the door, finally allowing herself to fully process the shock and hurt. Tears streamed down her face as she replayed the image of Daniel kissing that woman, the betrayal cutting deeper with each repetition. After a while, the tears subsided, replaced by a cold, hard anger. She couldn't just sit here and cry. She needed to know the truth. She picked up her phone and stared at the unknown number that had sent the message. Should she reply? Should she try to find out who it was? Hesitantly, she typed a message. Who is this? A few minutes later, her phone buzzed with a reply. Someone who knows the truth about Daniel. Amelia's heart pounded in her chest. This was it. A direct line to the information she desperately craved. She typed back, "What truth?" The reply came almost instantly. He's been seeing someone else for months. Months? The word hit Amelia like a punch to the gut. Months of lies, months of deception, months of her being completely oblivious. The thought was unbearable. She typed back, her fingers trembling. "Who is she? How do you know?" The response was a name. "Olivia. We work together." Olivia. The name was unfamiliar. Amelia didn't recognize it. But the fact that the sender claimed to work with Daniel gave the message a chilling credibility. Amelia spent the rest of the afternoon exchanging messages with the anonymous sender, who identified herself only as a concerned friend. She learned that Daniel had indeed been having an affair with a colleague named Olivia for several months. They had met at work and had quickly become involved, their relationship blossoming under Amelia's unsuspecting nose. The sender provided details: places Daniel and Olivia had been seen together, excuses Daniel had used to spend time with her, even snippets of conversations she had overheard. The more Amelia learned, the more her heart ached with betrayal. The man she thought she knew, the man she had planned to spend her life with, had been living a lie, leading a double life right under her roof. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, Amelia's hurt began to morph into something else, something darker and more dangerous. The initial shock and sadness were being replaced by a burning desire for revenge. He had played her for a fool, had betrayed her trust in the most profound way possible. She wouldn't let him get away with it. Over the next few days, Amelia acted as if nothing had changed. She continued her routine with Daniel, going out for dinner, watching movies at home, even engaging in casual conversation about their future. But beneath the surface, she was seething with anger, her mind constantly plotting and scheming. She started to gather her own evidence, subtly checking Daniel's phone when he wasn't looking, scrutinizing his social media activity, even discreetly following him after work on a couple of occasions. She found more corroborating evidence: text messages, emails, even a small gift receipt for a piece of jewelry she knew he hadn't bought for her. The more she uncovered, the more her resolve hardened. The man she loved had been a master of deception, and she was determined to make him pay for it. The thought of confronting him directly, of engaging in a tearful argument, held no appeal. She wanted him to feel the same pain she was feeling, to experience the same sense of betrayal and humiliation. She started formulating a plan, a meticulous and elaborate scheme that would not only expose his infidelity but also make him regret ever crossing her. She spent hours brainstorming, drawing inspiration from movies and books, carefully considering every detail. She wanted her revenge to be perfect, to be devastating. She knew it wouldn't be easy. Daniel was a charming and persuasive individual, and she would have to be careful not to arouse his suspicion. She would have to play the part of the unsuspecting girlfriend, all while secretly plotting his downfall. The thought of what she was planning both excited and terrified her. She had never considered herself capable of such calculated ruthlessness. But the depth of Daniel's betrayal had unleashed something within her, a dark and vengeful side she never knew existed. She knew that seeking revenge might not bring her the happiness she craved. But in that moment, it felt like the only thing that mattered. She wanted Daniel to suffer, to understand the magnitude of his actions, and she was willing to do whatever it took to make that happen. The sweet and loving Amelia was slowly being replaced by someone colder, someone more calculating, someone driven by a burning desire for retribution. The game had changed, and she was ready to play. Amelia's plan began to take shape, each detail meticulously crafted, each step carefully considered. She knew she had to be patient, to play the long game if she wanted her revenge to be truly effective. She couldn't act rashly or emotionally. She had to be strategic, like a chess player carefully positioning her pieces for the final checkmate. The first step was to gather as much information as possible about Olivia. Thanks to the anonymous concerned friend, Amelia had a name and a workplace. She did some discreet online research, finding Olivia's social media profiles. She learned that Olivia was relatively new to the company, ambitious and career-driven. She also learned that Olivia was currently in a long-distance relationship with someone who lived overseas. This piece of information sparked an idea in Amelia's mind. She continued to play the part of the unsuspecting girlfriend with Daniel, their interactions superficially normal, but underneath, Amelia was observing him with a newfound scrutiny. She noticed his increased protectiveness of his phone, the way he would subtly angle the screen away from her when he was texting. She also noticed his occasional late nights at the office, excuses that now rang hollow and deceitful. Amelia started documenting everything: dates, times, vague excuses, anything that could potentially be used against him later. She felt like a spy in her own home, meticulously gathering evidence of her partner's betrayal. One evening, while Daniel was out with friends, Amelia decided to take a closer look at his phone. She knew his passcode, their anniversary date. Her hands trembled slightly as she typed it in. She scrolled through his messages, her heart sinking with each confirmation of his affair. There were messages to Olivia filled with affection and longing, plans for secret rendezvous, even photos they had exchanged. Amelia felt a surge of anger and hurt, but she forced herself to remain calm. She copied some of the most incriminating messages and photos, sending them to her own email address. This was ammunition she could use later. As she continued to explore his phone, she stumbled upon something else that caught her attention. Daniel had been confiding in a close friend, Mark, about his affair. In one particularly revealing message, Daniel had expressed his guilt about hurting Amelia, but had also admitted that he was enjoying the excitement and novelty of his relationship with Olivia. He had even mentioned that he was starting to see a future with Olivia and was considering ending things with Amelia soon. This message hit Amelia harder than any of the others. Not only was Daniel cheating on her, but he was also planning to leave her for someone else. The casual cruelty of his words ignited a firestorm of anger within her. She wouldn't just get revenge. She would make him regret ever thinking of replacing her. Amelia's plan started to solidify. She decided that simply exposing his affair wouldn't be enough. She wanted to hit him where it would hurt the most: his reputation, his career, his sense of self-worth. She knew that Daniel was incredibly ambitious and that his job was very important to him. He had been working towards a promotion for months, something he talked about constantly. Amelia decided that sabotaging his chances of getting that promotion would be a key part of her revenge. She started by subtly undermining him at social events related to work. She would casually mention his occasional lack of attention to detail or his tendency to take credit for other people's ideas. She made sure to plant these seeds of doubt in the minds of people who had influence at his company. She also used the information she had gathered about Olivia. Knowing that Olivia was in a long-distance relationship, Amelia anonymously contacted Olivia's boyfriend, providing him with the evidence of Olivia's affair with Daniel. She included the messages and photos she had found on Daniel's phone. Her hope was that Olivia's boyfriend would confront her, creating drama and potentially jeopardizing her job as well. Amelia knew she was playing a dangerous game, but the desire for revenge had consumed her. She felt justified in her actions. Daniel had betrayed her in the worst possible way, and she was simply giving him a taste of his own medicine. As the weeks passed, Amelia continued to execute her plan, each step carefully calculated and precisely timed. She watched as subtle changes started to occur in Daniel's life. He seemed more stressed and anxious, complaining about increased scrutiny at work and hinting at problems in Olivia's long-distance relationship. Amelia felt a dark sense of satisfaction. Her plan was working. Daniel was starting to feel the consequences of his actions, even if he didn't yet know that she was the one pulling the strings. She knew she was approaching the climax of her revenge, the moment when she would finally reveal her knowledge of his betrayal and watch his world crumble around him. She just had to be patient a little longer, to wait for the perfect opportunity to strike the final blow. The anticipation was almost unbearable, but she knew that the payoff would be worth it. The man who had broken her heart was about to learn the true meaning of pain. The perfect opportunity presented itself a few weeks later. Daniel's company was hosting a large gala event, a prestigious affair attended by senior executives, important clients, and industry leaders. Daniel had been particularly excited about this event, seeing it as a crucial opportunity to impress his superiors and solidify his chances for the coveted promotion. Amelia had initially dreaded the thought of attending the gala with Daniel, the prospect of having to pretend that everything was fine while seething with anger beneath the surface. But then, she realized that this was the perfect stage for her final act of revenge. What better way to expose his betrayal and humiliate him than in front of his colleagues, his bosses, and the entire professional network he so desperately wanted to impress? She accepted his invitation, outwardly appearing enthusiastic about the event. She even went shopping for a stunning new dress, a scarlet gown that exuded confidence and power. On the night of the gala, Amelia spent hours getting ready, meticulously applying her makeup and styling her hair. She wanted to look her absolute best, a picture of poise and composure, a stark contrast to the emotional wreck Daniel had tried to turn her into. As they arrived at the grand ballroom, Daniel was beaming with pride, his arm possessively around Amelia's waist. He introduced her to his colleagues and superiors, basking in the attention and admiration. Amelia played her part perfectly, smiling and engaging in polite conversation, all the while knowing that his downfall was imminent. Later in the evening, as Daniel was mingling with a group of senior executives, Amelia made her move. She had arranged for the anonymous, concerned friend to send an email to everyone at Daniel's company, including his boss and the HR department. The email contained all the evidence Amelia had gathered, the incriminating messages, the photos of Daniel and Olivia, even the details of Olivia's long-distance boyfriend and how Amelia had informed him of the affair. As the email hit inboxes across the ballroom, Amelia watched with a cold sense of satisfaction as Daniel's phone started buzzing incessantly. She saw the color drain from his face as he checked his messages, his eyes widening in disbelief and dawning horror. He looked around frantically, his gaze eventually landing on Amelia, who was standing nearby watching him with a calm and collected expression. He knew, in that moment, that she was behind it. Daniel rushed over to her, his face pale and his voice trembling with anger and panic. "Amelia, what have you done?" he hissed, grabbing her arm. Amelia calmly pulled her arm away, her eyes locking with his. "I told you I wouldn't let you get away with it, Daniel," she said, her voice low and steady but filled with a steely resolve. "You broke my heart. Now it's your turn to feel some pain." Daniel's boss, who had been standing nearby, approached them, his face grim. "Daniel, I think we need to have a word," he said, his gaze fixed on Daniel with disapproval. Several other colleagues and executives had also gathered around, their faces a mixture of shock and curiosity as they overheard the exchange. The atmosphere in the grand ballroom had shifted from one of celebration to one of scandal and intrigue. Daniel's carefully constructed professional image was crumbling before his eyes. His chances for the promotion, which had seemed so promising just moments ago, were now likely gone. His reputation within the company was in tatters. As Daniel was led away by his boss, Amelia felt a strange mix of emotions. There was a sense of satisfaction, a feeling of having achieved her goal. She had exposed his betrayal and made him pay for what he had done. But there was also a sense of emptiness, a hollowness that even her successful revenge couldn't fill. She knew that what she had done might have consequences for her as well. Her actions were public, and she had undoubtedly created a scene. But in that moment, she didn't care. She had taken a stand, and she had made her point. She turned and walked away from the stunned crowd, her head held high. She didn't need to stay and witness the full extent of Daniel's humiliation. She had done what she came to do. As she stepped out into the cool night air, Amelia took a deep breath. The weight on her chest felt lighter, but the ache in her heart was still there. She knew that revenge wasn't the answer, that it wouldn't magically erase the pain Daniel had caused. But it had been a necessary step for her, a way to reclaim her power and to show him that he couldn't treat her with such disrespect and get away with it. The ending of her story with Daniel was far from the fairy tale she had once imagined. There was no reconciliation, no forgiveness, just a clean and decisive break. She had sought revenge, and she had achieved it. But now, as she stood alone under the stars, she knew that it was time for her to move on, to heal, and to build a new future for herself, one where she was valued and respected, and where her heart would be safe from betrayal. The scars of Daniel's actions would likely remain, but she was determined not to let them define her. She had taken a stand, and now she would start the journey towards finding her own closure and building a life filled with genuine happiness. A happiness that didn't depend on the approval or loyalty of someone who had so carelessly broken her trust.